success is not just a measure of how big you can dream. It is also a measure of how much you can do. A very happy morning to all. On behalf of SKCET, I'm Anita, Assistant Professor, Computer Science and Engineering from Sri Krishna College of Engineering and Technology, welcoming you all for Session 6 AICTE Atal Academy sponsored 1-week faculty development program on deep learning for visual computing. I feel very much honored in welcoming our chief guest of the day, Mr. Tumla Magesh, data scientist, Tata Consultancy Service. Welcome you, sir. Mr. Tumla Magesh did his undergraduate program in BTech Electronics and Communication Engineering from Gurukula Gangari Vishwavidyalaya. And also he completed his 2 months of summer internship at Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee. He started his career in the year of 2016 as an assistant system engineer, Tata Consultancy Service. He worked on Roop 8, Roop 9, AU25 and inventory and OM patch, update bug impact analysis. And also, he is involved in test strategy preparation, test scenario, and test case preparations. In the year of 2017, he was working as an IT analyst, Tata Consultancy Services. As an IT analyst, he worked on many data science projects using machine learning and mathematical concepts. His expertise in gathering business requirements for functional testing, developing test scenarios and test cases, and test execution for data migration, regression, user acceptance testing, and bug reporting, and also as well preparation of user testing manual. For the past 1 year, he is working as a data scientist in Tata Consultancy Service. He is working with Agile team in the field of algorithm implementation. And also, he worked on statistical analysis, data analysis, mathematics, probability, and predictive modeling. And also, he have done his certifications on Oracle Procurement Cloud 2017 Certified Implementation Specialist from Oracle. And also, he has done another certification course from Oracle, which is Oracle Communication, Billing and Revenue Management 7 Advanced Certified Implementation Specialist from Oracle. And also, he has done a certification on becoming a probability and statistic master from Udemy Academy. He has bagged so many awards in TCS. The few awards are OnSpot Award in the year of 2017, and in the year of 2018, he bagged a Special Initiative Award. In the year of 19, he got Service and Commitment Award, and the year of 2020 he got CLP Faculty Award, and the year of 2021 he bagged the CSR Special Initiative Award and Miles Award as well. So welcoming you for this session, sir. And we have one more chief guest for the day today, which is Arun Kumar K, data scientist from Tata Consultancy Service. He has done his undergraduate program in he has done his undergraduate program in E&I in Kumarasamy College of Engineering, Tamil Nadu. He has 6 years of experience in data-driven technologies and products serving clients in communication, internet service technology, and hospitality industries. He's proficient at collecting, analyzing, and interpreting large data sets, developing new models to improve business operations. And also from the year of 2015 to 2018, he served as Oracle consultant in TCS. He also provided the functional support for the financial process and service contract process for LinkedIn. And also he worked on the month-end closure activities for different entities. And also he took part in the enhancement activities that related to code changes, application setup to Cisco and Dover. And also from 2018 to till date, he is working as data scientist in TCS. He built classification model to personalize the room and ancillary service in hospitality industry. And also he developed bundles using machine learning and statistical techniques with respect to ancillary services. And also he used REST APIs to integrate the models with UI. And also he has a deep knowledge in machine learning, statistical analysis, Python, SQL, Oracle applications such as SEM, ERP, and SE. Sir, I'm welcoming you for this session, sir. And also, last but not least, and I feel very happy to welcome all the participants across various institutions for this 5 days Atal sponsored faculty development program. Today, our chief guests are going to deliver the session on advanced architecture such as GAN, transfer learning, techniques as well, one-shot learning, and so on. Once again, I feel very happy to welcoming you all for the session. And also, I wish you all a very good day. Thank you so much. Over to you, sir.
Mahesh, sir, you can start sharing.
Yeah. Good morning, all. So, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for an wonderful intro on us. So, hi, all. So, we'll be having an session as discussed on deep learning for visual computing on the advanced structure architecture. So, firstly, we'll be discussing on introduction of deep learning. As you guys all know, so deep learning is a subset of machine learning in which the multi-layered neural network learns from vast amount of data. Nowadays, as we are increasing on the more data, so we have multi-layered neural networks which will be learning from this vast amount of data. So firstly, I will be discussing on the GAN, one of the advanced architecture. So GAN is an generative adversarial network. It's a type of neural network architecture for generating the models. So GAN are recently in innovation. It has been in machine learning. They create the new data instance that resembles our training the data. For example, GAN can create images that look like photographs of human faces, even though the face doesn't belong to any real person. So GAN achieves this level of realism by pairing a generator which learns to produce the target output with a discriminator. So which this learns to distinguish a true data from the output of a generator. This generator tries to fool the discriminator, and this discriminator tries to keep it from being fooled. So this will go on in deep, some in little bit pictorially. So this here in GAN, generative, in the name of generative adversarial network, it describes a class of statistical models that contracts with the descriptive, discriminative models. Like informally, these generative models can generate new data instance, whereas these discriminative models discriminate between different kinds of data instance. A generative model can generate a new photos of animals that like a real animal, while the discriminative model can tell a dog from a cat, like for an discriminating purpose. So GAN are just one kind of generative model. Formally, we can say, let's suppose a given set of data instance like X and a set of labels Y. The for generative model, it captures the joint probability of p x comma y, or we can say probability of x if there are no any labels. Whereas for discriminative model, it captures the conditional probability. Here, if you see in the discriminative model and generative model, the discriminate model, this tries to tell the difference between the handwritten zeros and ones by drawing a line in the data space. If it gives the line right, it can distinguish zeros from one without ever having the model to exactly where the instance is placed in the data space on the other side of the line. In contrast, the generative model, this tries to convince the ones and zeros by generating an zero uh, ones and zero by generating digits that fall closer to the real counterparts in the data space. It has to model the distribution throughout the data space. GANs offer an effective way to train such rich models to resemble a real distribution. To understand how they will work, we need to understand the basic structure of GAN. So the GAN structure, if you see, a generator like GAN has two parts. One is the generator and the discriminator. This generator learns to generate a plausible data that generate instance become negative training. Examples for the discriminator. This discriminator learns to distinguish the generator's fake data from the real data. For example, let's suppose if you are giving feeding any real data. Let's suppose here if you see we have feeded a node. So the generative data, it generates plausible data, which becomes negative training, for example. So while distinguishing, the discriminator says like where it can fake. Uh, when training begins, the generator produces obviously first initially it will be generating a fake data. So the discriminator quickly at the initial point it quickly says that it's a fake. But as the training progress, it keeps on progressing. The generator gets closer to the output that can fool the discriminator. For example, and keep on when you keep on the data training on. So when you keep the data training on, it tries to generate a closer image which can be fooled to the discriminator. For example, if you see here, if the generator training goes well, if it, let's suppose if you are giving an image which is nearly equal to the same input, so the discriminator gets worse at telling the difference between a real and fake. It starts to classify the fake data as well real. Its accuracy decreases if the training goes more and more. Sorry. So both these, if you see, both the generator and the discriminator are in neural networks. This generator output is connected directly to the discriminator input through back propagation. The discriminator's classification provides a signal. Sorry. So provides a signal that the generator used to update its weight. So here you can see where a random input is given, the generator, it has a sample, whereas the real image has a sample. If the discriminator tries to discriminate, there will be certain losses we'll be discussing. So to discuss about the discriminator, the training the discriminator, here for to train a discriminator, it connects with two losses during the discriminator training. The discriminator ignores the generator losses and just uses the discriminator losses while discriminating in the back proportion. During this discriminator training, the discriminator classifies both the real data and the fake data from the generator. The discriminator loss penalizes the discriminator for misclassifying a real instance as fake or fake instance as real. So this discriminator, it updates its weight through this back proportion from the discriminator loss through a discriminator network. So that's the reason if you see back. So the image while keep on training, it firstly if it shows like fake. When the training progress, if the training goes well on feeding the losses to the generator again and again, so the image whichever, let's suppose the fake data as well, it might look real for it. So coming to the generator part, the generator part of this GAN, it learns to create a fake data by incorporating feedback from this discriminator to classify its output as real. Generator training, which requires a tighter integration between this generator and discriminator than the discriminator training they requires. The proportion of GAN that trains the generator, it includes like random input, generative network, which transform this random input into a data instance. The discriminator network, which classifies the generated network. So in the discriminator output, there will be some here. If you see while generating, when it comes to the generator training, the generator as well has its losses, which penalizes the generator for failing to fool the discriminator. So that one. Coming to here, so while doing this kind of training the data images, so there will be certain loss functions as well. So we have, let's suppose there are many loss happens over here. There we have minimax losses, whereas Wesertain's losses. So I will be discussing one. You can see. So GAN tries to try to replicate the probability distribution. There will be for this loose function we have for the use of loose function that can reflect the distance between the distribution of data generated by GAN and the distribution of the real data. So the generator tries to minimize the following function, while the discriminator tries to maximize it. So here you can see in this function E subscript of x, you can see log of d of x function plus Ez log of 1 minus d of g here, where this d of x is the discriminator's estimate of the probability that the real data instance is of x is real. Whereas the E of x, E of x, that is the expected value over the real data instance. Coming to the G of Z is the generator's output when given the noise is Z. So here you can see that D of G of Z. This is the discriminator's estimate of the probability whether that is a fake instance, fake one is in real. So here E of Z is you can see here Z is expected is the expected value over all the random inputs to the generator. In effect, the expected value over all the generated fake instance of Z of Z. This formula derives from a cross entropy between the real and generated. You can see between the real and generated images distributions. That's one. There are we have the common problems as well. So while training the data, let's suppose we have like a few. One is the vanishing gradient. Researchers have suggested like if your discriminator is too good, then the generator training can fail due to the vanishing gradient. In effect, the optimal discriminator doesn't provide any enough information for the generator to make progress. So here, so for this, to reduce this vanishing gradient, we have two remedies. One is in the Wasserstein laws. The Wasserstein is to be designed to prevent this vanishing gradient even when you train the discriminator to optimality. Whereas to modify the maximize loss, the original GAN, which are the proposed for modification, to minimize the loss to deal with, it has to be minimized the loss to deal with this vanishing gradients. So there are other things as well. We can say the mod collapsion. So here, if you see, there is a mod collapsion as well, which that is one kind of problem to provide a wide variety of outputs. For example, a different phase of every random input to phase our generator. So we can say every, let's suppose there are a different phase or every, while giving every random input to the generator, so it keeps on training. So so we can attempt like we can reduce this by adding a noise to the discriminator input while inputting, or we can penalize the discriminator weights. That is one. Another one is there is a failure as well happens while converging the images. So GANs frequently fail to converge. So here it fails to converge. Here while keep on training the data, even the fake one it assumes that it's a real when you keep more training. So that's the one of the common problems. So there are various applications where GAN has been utilized, like for generating a photographs of any human faces. You can see like emojis as well. We have even in cameras or mobile phones, while phones you can different like keeping it night mode, or you can go in different modes. And for generating a realistic photograph, you can see for editing photographs, we use uh, we can use this GAN. And for face aging as well, you can see in nowadays we have more even the crime branch, or even in real world. So we can detect in if you see in the crime departments, they can detect in person's photo in the CCTV cameras that way. So there as well we can use this for higher resolution, for increasing the resolution as well we can use. And we have again in various, there are more variations like progressive GANs, conditional GANs, image to image translation. You can do the image to image translation. We have another one, cycle GAN, then text to image, super resolutions, and for face, I think you can do the text to speech as well. There as well we can use this. So uh, these are about the GAN. I think there are another few advanced like architectures as well. So that will be discussed by Arun. Uh, Arun, now over to you.
Hi, Mahesh. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. So once you are done, please let me know. I can start the screen sharing.
Yeah. So I have a few reference link, and I will take the Q&A at last so that we can continue on the next topic. So we can have all in one. Is
Yeah,
that
sure,
okay?
bro. Sure, bro. Sure. So may I start, Mahesh? You're okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Sure. I will start the sharing, okay?
Yeah.
So is it visible, Mahesh?
Yes, sir. It's good.
Okay. So let me start. I'm going to talk some points about transfer learning in deep learning, and how the one-shot learning is done in deep learning. So before that, I will give you just a quick intro of myself. So I'm like the intro. Thank you for the intro. So like the intro, I have 6 years of data science, 6 years of experience in TCS, and 3 years as a data scientist. So the product we were building is, first one is related to the hospitality industry. So where we are trying to personalize the guest experience. So by personalizing means we are providing the ancillary services that are present in the hotels, and making them the relevance to the guest. So that will be my first data science project. And the other one is the ETA prediction in the airline industry. Both were led by our data scientist lead and manager, who is also present in this call, Vijay Rangan. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your guidance. So today, let us see about transfer learning. Okay, let me start. So what is transfer learning? So transfer learning is a technique. In the recent times, if you see, a lot of deep learning and machine learning applications are, if you see in a commercial side, a lot of things are happening in the deep learning and the machine learning areas. Every recent technologies, every companies, every commercial business, they are adopting the technologies to bring out the evolution in their products, to make that products, to make sure that it has reached to the end customer, and each and every customer satisfied and personalized in their own way. So likewise, how the transfer learning is helping in the commercial business is, so recent times we are, what is the idea behind the transfer learning is we are just taking a pre-trained model. So whatever model, it has been already trained by lot of images, lot of data, like 2 or 3 TBs of terabytes of data. It has been already trained by Facebook, Google, Microsoft, those kind of big huge names, and we can take those and we can just remove the output layer of whatever the prediction they are making. They must be making some 1 or 2 predictions to show their training capacity of the model. So basically what we are doing is we are taking that model and removing the loss layer, and we are utilizing that pre-trained model for our own use. So that is called as a transfer learning in a nutshell. So in the first point, you can see it has risen to prominence in AI, artificial intelligence, and the machine learning community over past decades. Yeah, it has a very huge applications, this transfer learning. And the next thing is, transfer learning is a machine learning method where a model developed for a task is reused as a starting point for the model on the second task. So like I told you, we are utilizing the pre-trained model, and we are taking advantage of that model. So we are capturing the essence and knowledge, whatever the first model has been trained. And we are effectively utilizing that to make our job easier, to make our predictions well. So I think that, let me just change the point. Yeah. So how we are doing that is we are storing the knowledge gained while solving one problem, and we are just applying that knowledge. Not we are we are just taking the knowledge and we are just applying it on our own problems. So if you see at the practical real-time applications where this transfer learning in the deep learning has been used, it is used in the cancer subtype discovery. These are real-time applications where they have used the transfer learning and they have achieved a very good results. So video game playing, and the text classification, even if you see that signature classification. So nowadays everything is moving towards digital era. So even the signature, everything, the forging, those kind of things can be avoided by using this kind of techniques in deep learning. So text classification, medical imaging, if you see at X-rays and I think radiology also, they have a very good applications in transfer learning. They were just capturing the essence of the patient history in they must have some cancer set or something like that. They're just capturing that, and they are trying to use that while taking X-ray or something in application, something relevant to that. And the spam filtering also they are using, and it has a very good some other applications also, real-time applications. So if you see the computer scientist Andrew Ng, he said in 2016 that transfer learning will be like one of the most commercially successful machine learning deep learning algorithm it is going to be. So it has a very good and huge applications. Okay, so let me navigate to the second slide. So if you have any questions, I can take now on the basics of transfer learning, else I can navigate. Okay, I can navigate to the second slide. So if you see, what is the difference between the traditional machine learning model and what is transfer learning, how we are differentiating those two. Okay, so first one, if you look at the traditional machine learning model, what we do is we will have a data set. Okay, that data set will tell you what we are going to do. That has all the things. What is our business problem, how we are trying to interpret that data set to make use to our business problem. So that is how the traditional machine learning is. We have a data set one, and we will just train the models in that data set. So that is going to be like learning system task one. So that will be like end of the machine learning model one. So if you look at the first block, this will be a machine learning model, and this will be a machine learning model too. So the problem here, if you see, is the knowledge is not retained or accumulated. So we are not storing, we are whatever the knowledge we have gained from this data set one, we are just utilizing it for the task one, and we are not reusing it anywhere. Okay, so likewise in the data set 2 also, we are doing the same thing. We are not storing any knowledge or anything. We are just storing the knowledge just for only one output. So just for only one prediction. So why not we why not we use the knowledge of this data set, and we can use that data set knowledge to improve our prediction. So obviously, if you see, you will not always, in all the cases, you will not get good data. So in those times, if you have a knowledge from pre-trained models somewhere that is very similar to our prediction, that will be helpful. So that is where the transfer learning is pitching in. Okay. So what it is doing is essentially learning of a new task relies on the previous learned task. Learning process can be faster, more accurate, or needed less training. So here, if you see how they are achieving the transfer learning is, see, they are taking the data set one and they are creating a learning system task, which is nothing but a machine learning model. They are just creating a machine learning model from the data set one, and they are extracting the knowledge, and then they are using that knowledge to the second machine learning. So that is what transfer learning is. So by this way, we can achieve a very good accuracy, and even if we have less number of data to train our model, so that can be also be solved. So any questions on this slide? I think there won't be any questions. So
Sir,
let me know.
What is about this knowledge that is linking to learning systems?
Yeah, so knowledge is nothing but an essence. Okay, so I mean, so we have a huge number of data. Let us say, you have a CAT prediction. Okay, you have let us talk about the cancer data prediction. Okay, you have a data set that is having a patient record. I mean, cancer patient records. Okay, so obviously not every patient that is coming to the hospital having the cancer. Okay, some of them might have cancer, some of them might not have cancer. So you are building a machine learning model for that. That is going to say if a patient is walking into the hospital, based on the input information like he's smoking, and if he's smoking, he must have lung cancer, and if his age is 60 or 70, like that. So the machine learning model is going to say, okay, if a patient is coming in, and it will take some of its attributes, it will take some of his history, and it is going to say that he and she or is having cancer or not. Okay, so that is limited to that only machine learning model. Okay, so what we are doing is we are taking that cancer, I mean the knowledge of the model, how the machine learning model is learning that data, and it is predicting our prediction. So that is the knowledge we are taking it, and we are using that knowledge to somewhere else. Like, if a cancer detection and radiology, it might have some similar properties. I don't know, I'm not expert in the medical terms, but I'm saying if it is have some similarities in radiology also, we can use the knowledge, and we can say that, okay, in radiology, like say, during x-ray scans or something like that, we can say, okay, this part of lung has been affected, and cancer, already our cancer model is also suggesting that he might have a cancer. So that is the knowledge I'm talking about. I hope I have answered the question. Is it clear? You want me to, or you want me to go with the other example?
Yes, sir. Actually, I was thinking this is similar to dividing into some training and test part, but I think the difference here is related to data. Data set is different here. Concept is similar, I think.
Yeah. So see, yeah. Yeah, correct. You are exactly right. Here we are, that is, everything that dividing and testing, that will comes into a single machine learning model. So here what we are doing is we are trying to relate two machine learning models. Okay, that is what we are trying to relate. That is what the transfer learning is helping us to.
Okay, thanks.
Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Is it clear? May I navigate to that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Clear.
If we don't have any questions, I think I can navigate. Thank you. Yeah. So, I have taken an example here. Okay. So, I have a implementation also. I have implemented in a Google Colab. So this is an image of that, what I'm going to show for implementation. So I have taken a MobileNet V2 dataset, okay, pre-trained model, which was done by, I think, Google. It was available in TensorFlow Hub. We can take that. So it was trained on 1.4 million images and it has 1,000 classes. So classes is nothing but, it is nothing but what are the categories of image. Let us say if you are giving image here, So the image here is a goldfish. Okay. So what the you can build CNN, and you can use a softmax function, and softmax activation function also, and you can just try to classify. But the problem will occur if you are adding any new. If you don't want to predict just one image. If you see real-time application, they will not be satisfied if just you can say I can do only the 100 or something like that. So in order to overcome that problem, what we are doing is we are using the transfer learning here. Okay. So the MobileNet V2 is a pre-trained model, and it has 1,000 classes, and it can able to classify this 1.4 million images. So if I give the input image of this goldfish to the neural networks, so what it will do is it will going to tell me that this image belongs to which class. So in this case, it is a goldfish, so the goldfish will be printed. So my output will be goldfish. So this is how we can efficiently use the pre-trained model to classify the goldfish. This is not a transfer learning. This is saying that first part of the example. The next part of the example will have, I will show you how I used this data set, how I used this MobileNet V2 trained at Google data set. And not a data set, it's actually a model. How this model I have used that, and how I achieved my own, I can pass the flower and make it to the another job. So how I achieved my transfer. I will discuss it in the next slide. Yeah. So what here I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to freeze all the neural networks here. Whatever the networks you are seeing here, so I'm just trying to freeze the neural networks. Okay. So this 1,000 classes, it has all the things like tiger, shark. I think shark has two classes, great white, something like that. But it may not have all the all the images, right? So how efficiently we are going to use that is I'm not going to change anything on the modeling part. So the model will be trained just like a save file. Model will be trained. So only the knowledge how I'm going to utilize this. I'm just here. If you see, I'm just passing the image of the image of the dicey flower. I think here. So instead of replacing this traditional goldfish image that we used to pass earlier, I'm replacing that with a flower image, and I'm going to pass my neural network, and it will go to my softmax function, my softmax activate function, and it will give me that whether it belongs to which class. Here, for example, like I told earlier in transfer learning, we will remove the last layer. So the last layer here is it has 1,000 classes. I have removed this 1,000 classes into the 5 classes, because in the 1,000 classes, I may or I may not have my classes. Okay. So instead of limiting to this 1,000 classes, we are taking separate 5 classes. Okay. So that is what I have planned for this demo. So I think let me start that demo. I think you will understand better once you saw that demo. So so here we are going to do the image classification. So I'm going to show you how I have taken the pre-trained model from the Google TensorFlow Hub and retrained that on the Flubber dataset. So I have used this pre-trained model, and I'm using it for my purpose, which is a Flubber detection. Yeah. Also, another thing to notice, I don't have, this is a deep learning machine. It's a deep learning model. So, this my computation power is limited. I have only 16 GB of RAM. So I have taken the Google Colab here. So let me start. Okay. So here I have imported the libraries. I think NumPy you already know. If you deal with arrays, or we have every image is nothing but RGB. It has 3 channels, red, green, blue. So we have to divide something by 255 and then storing into arrays. For that operation, I have imported the NumPy. And the CV2, you already know about CV2. I know you will understand it later. I will tell you open CV2 where we are using that. So for image, I have imported this pil.image. So we will be dealing with image, right? To open and view the images here. So you know that these are some traditional deep learning libraries. You know that about Matplotlib. So for plotting purpose, we can use that. So TensorFlow, you already know. These are some of Keras model sequential layers. These are some traditional deep learning in libraries only. Okay, I'm running this one. Yeah, model is now the libraries are imported. So now I'm making the prediction using the ready-made model without any train. So this is the model I'm talking about. Okay. So this one is the pre-trained model, MobileNet V2. Okay, so it has around 1.4 million images, and we can use this model, saved model, to make our prediction. So it's an overview. MobileNet is a family of neural network architecture for efficient on-device image classification. Yeah. So you can just use this link, and here they have given you some snippet of the code. You can just use this link, and you can download that data set, and yeah, you can do that, okay, without spending a lot of resources. Okay, so this is what I have did. So here I have assigned it to a classifier. So I have used here the importer libraries, Keras. Sequential I have used. Those are sequential groups, linear stack of layers into a model. So basically we will have lot of layers, right, in a neural network. So it will group that into a model, so that we can use it for a prediction. Okay, here I have imported, see the URL here, and the input shape is I will talk about that image shape here, why I have defined the image shape 224. See, there's MobileNet, and it has a limitation. We cannot give the input images like 1080 pixel or huge image in 1924 into 1080, something like that we cannot give. So the resolution should be the same. For that purpose, we have defined the default resolution 224, So that is what I have given here. Input shape is nothing but a image shape, and 3 is nothing but a channel. So if you are using a black and white image for a classification, it will be 1. So it doesn't have a channel, so it will be a 1. So here I'm using a color image, so it will have RGB, so red, green, blue, right? So we have a 3 channels here. So that's why I have defined my input shape as a image shape as a 3. And once I execute it, yeah, it is executed. Okay, so now after executing it, what I'm trying to do is I have already I have found this image in the Google. It's an image of the tiger shark fish. Okay, so I have uploaded it for the time convenience, I have uploaded it already. So you already have it in my files. If you see here, we have this here. So what I'm trying to do is I'm just opening the image. Okay, so here I'm resizing the image 224. If I open the image without this resize, I think it will be giving you a very enlarged picture. Yeah. So we don't want this to pass into our model. We want image to be reshaped. So I'm using this command, resize. So it is resized to 224, 224. Okay. So after let me just add one more cell here, and I will show you. Yeah. So if you see after reshaping that, if you just print it here, you can just see I have just printed the TS variable. So you can just see my shark is stored into that TS variable. So now you see that color scale is 255. So we have to convert this image into a NumPy array. So for that I'm using that NumPy array, and I'm dividing it by 225. So after dividing it, you can see my shape is now 224, 224, which is pixel size, and the channel is 3. So that is what it is telling here. So you can print the TS also, and you can see what is stored in the TS. So it has the arrays. So the image is converted here. Let me delete this. So the image, whatever you are seeing here, tiger shark, it is converted into the arrays, NumPy arrays. So the values here are like 0.4 or 0.5, because I have divided it by 255. Usually the range will be from 1 to 255. So to view in a percentage form, I have just divided it here. So, and the shape of this is 224, 224, 3. So we have 224, 224, and three dimension array here. Okay. So next here, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to, like I said, we cannot pass this only one image into the model. So I'm just adding a dummy image here. So that is what I'm trying to do here. And after adding that, the image, now it will be 1, 224, 223. The one will be separate image. So which is nothing but, some black and white image, you can say like that. Or else if you want, I will just print this alone, and I will show you how that array is taking. Yeah, basically what I'm doing is instead of giving an input, uploading an input image, I'm just giving as an array. So I think any questions until here? Now we are making the prediction here. Any questions until so far? Okay, let me proceed further. So here what I'm doing is I'm using the classifier. So the classifier, if you see whatever the images, that 1.4 million image I'm talking about, it's stored in the classifier variable. So I'm using that classifier variable and I'm predicting, and whatever the image I'm having in hand, the tiger shark. Okay, so I'm just predicting it. Okay, I'm using the predict command. I'm just predicting it. I'm just pausing it. Okay, so once I execute this block of code, here I haven't. Okay, I think one intensity model must also function technically tracing expensive tracing loop processing objects. It's just a warning, don't need to worry about that. So here you see I am just checking the shape of it. Okay, now the model has been predicted, and here the model has been predicted, but the shape is 1,1001. Okay, but we want to understand which class it is belonging to. Like I told, we have 1,000 classes initially. So what I'm doing is I'm just running it again. I'm just using the argmax command here, and it will give me that. Let me print you this result, so you will understand which array I'm going to take. So we have this array. This is a prediction made by which is a prediction made by our classifier here. Okay. So among this, we want to know which argument, which array has maximum number of arguments. So I'm using here numpy arguments and just printing the label. So it is saying that it belongs to the category class 4. Okay. But we don't know, right? I mean, let me just to open the classes here. I think, yeah. So here we have 5 classes. Not here, sorry. Here we have 1,000 classes. Okay, if it is belongs to 4th class, we can say it is a tiger or shark. We don't know that. So for that purpose, what I'm doing is, I'm just downloading it here. Whatever the labels that here I have talked about, 1,000 classes. I'm just downloading it from the image labels. This is the link. Here you will get the. Yeah, it has all the 1,000 labels here. You have serial clock, we have combination lock, you have computer keyboard. Okay, so you can use the instead of I have given the tiger shark, you can use computer keyboard also. So here what I'm doing is I'm just opening the text file here. The text file, whatever you are seeing here, I'm just stored it already here in my files, and I'm opening it. So after reading it, I'm just saving it in the list image labels. Okay, I'm opening it and I'm splitting the lines here. You see every label is in a single line, so I'm using the split line function, and I'm storing it into the image labels, and I'm appending the image labels here over here. Here I'm just printing the first 5 values. Okay, what are the first? What are the first 5 values that are present here? Okay. So now we know that our image is this one. The image is just labeled as a 4. So basically, whatever the 4th we are having here, 4th label we are having here. So it is our predicted label. So here 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4th is a tiger shark. So our image is a tiger shark. So this is how the image classification is done. Okay, this is how the whatever the model Google has trained for this MobileNet V2 model, it can do this job. Okay, now how we can use that for our prediction. Okay, now we have to freeze this in between neural network layer, and we can pass our own input and we can get our own output. I removed all the 1,000 classes, and I'm just passing the 5 classes, and I'm going to achieve the transfer learning here. So any questions so far? Yeah, so I think now I'm moving to the next part. So here what I'm doing is I'm just taking the above model. Hello. Yeah.
It is actually not visible
Yeah, sure.
clearly. So can you share this?
It's not visible means it's not zoom enough.
Now it is clearly visible.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know that it is not visible. I think now it is better, right?
Right.
I think
Yeah,
it is fair. I
better.
can
It's
just
better
give
now.
you an overview. I think you might have lost. So here I'm just importing the libraries, and here I'm just like I told, I'm taking the mobile net classifier here, classifier model here, and this is my input image. It's a great shark, and I'm converting this input image into the NumPy arrays, and the NumPy arrays, you can see here the arrays, and after that, I'm just doing some operations on this input image so that it matches with our model. So I'm making a prediction, and it is saying that it belongs to class 4, and we don't know what is class 4. So Google has provided its API, so we can look up it. We can look up the CPI, so understand what is the class 4. So the class 4 is tiger shark. So the image is classified as a tiger shark. So now let me jump into that Flower dataset. Okay, how I'm using this MobileNet model, and I'm doing prediction in the Flower dataset. Okay, so this is a dataset URL. Okay, this API will have yeah, it will download it. Okay, I don't want to download it again. So basically, this will have samples of images. I will just show you how the images, what are the images we have here. Okay, so yeah, so this will have the flower images. Basically, we have 5 classes here. It has roses, daisy, and other 3 classes, other 3 types of flowers. I'm just importing that, and I'm just storing. No, you can just print this data directly variable to see where the data sets have been stored. See, it's a Google Colab, and it won't give you the entire direction. It will just give you the data sets flower photos. Okay, and you can view that here. I will go to my files inside the data sets. You will have the flower photos. See, whatever that tar file that I have, it has downloaded. So it's already downloaded and saved it here. Okay, so if I open here, I think it will be stuck. I think it will have, yeah, it will have the 5 types of roses. Okay, and each folder will have the images of the daisy or respective images of the folders. Okay, so what we are trying to do is we are trying to pass this image into the MobileNet V2 model, and we are trying to get it classified correctly. Okay, so here I'm importing the path lib, okay, to get a in where it is stored. So usually in Windows and Linux machine you can use this, but here it will share as a POSIX path only. So it's I'm using the Google Colab, right? So it will share like this. So you can understand the flower images are downloaded here, and it is stored in this path dataset / flower photo. So I'm just here. What I'm doing is here I will run this. Here I'm printing the each and every. I mean just 5 images under there. I think it is echoing. Yeah. So I'm just converting this file paths into a list. Mahesh, can you please
Sir, Vishal, sir, please switch off your mic, sir.
Please switch off your mic, sir. Vishal, sir.
Ma'am, they may
Sir,
not
Vishal, sir.
hear you as an organizer. Please mute them, ma'am.
Yeah, I think it is better now. So let me continue.
Yes, sir.
So the each and every path I'm converting it to a list. So you can see here, data sets flower, and it has the number of the image. So I'm just converting it to the list. So why I'm converting it to the list means, you will get it later. Okay. So here I'm counting how many number of image, okay, that is present in all the folders. So using the image count, and I'm calculating the just the length of the list. So we can understand there are 3,670 image present. Okay, so from my from my tested data set. So what I'm here doing is I'm just going via folder by folder. Okay, so we see here we have Dice, I mean Dandelion, the image classifier. Okay, yeah, types of roses. So I'm just printing what are the images that are present here in the roses folder. So if you want to open and see any of the roses, let's say you want to open and see the second file, you can just use this command string and open image. So you understand why I have imported the image. Okay, so that this image, this library, PIA library, so it is helping me actually to open and view the images. Yeah, so likewise, in the roses folder, if you want to open the first image, you can just put it one here, and it will open the first image, which is 490. Yeah, it is just saying roses. Okay, the data set, it's a open source. I don't know. Instead of the rose image, it has written as a rose. Okay, let us see the second one. Yeah, it has a beautiful rose and a beautiful rose image. Likewise, I think 3 or 4. Yeah, I don't know where the roses are present in this picture. So open source image, it was provided by Google. So it will not have all the, we have a rose image here. In the fourth one, we have a rose image here. Okay. So we can clean it. Okay. We can clean it, but that will be another huge task. Okay. But that is not we are trying to do here. So I'm going to skip this. Okay. So next, we can, likewise, whatever we have viewed in the roses, we can view in the tulips folder also. Okay. We have beautiful tulips here. Likewise, third image or fourth image, you can just put the numbers here and it will print you. Yeah, nice. You will get a nice beautiful pictures. Yeah. So after that, what I'm doing is we understand what is there inside our image. Okay, so now I'm just converting everything into a dictionary. So we have 5 columns, 5 folders, and I'm creating a dictionary with that, and my key is going to be like roses, and my values are going to be the list. So basically whatever the list you are seeing here, it has a number of lists, right? That 3670 page that will be stored into this dictionary accordingly. Okay, and I'm just to replace. I'm here. What I'm doing is it's a basically label encoding. I'm doing. We have if you're passing something to the model, it should be zeros and ones. So I'm just label encoding here. I'm not using any label encoder. I want to I'm doing it manually. I'm just assigning values of the label here. So here, this is where I'm using the CV2. So that basically this open CV2, you can, whatever the image you have stored, in the dictionary, we have the image of the rows or anything like that, right? So we can basically use the CV2 and we can read the image. Basically, it will read into the arrays, okay? So I will just, put another line of code and I will show you what is stored in the image variable. Yeah, it has the arrays. Yeah, so whatever image that is there here, inside the roses, that's the first image. Yeah, I think it's let me just print you that. Yeah, this image now it is converted into the arrays, NumPy arrays. You see that the values are 7, 71, 82 like that. So yeah, if you want, you can divide it by 255 so that it will convert it into the 0 point value. Okay, so I'm checking the shape of the array. So it has 3-dimensional array. So we have 240, 320, and 3 here. So here what I'm doing is we are resizing this one. Okay, so the CV2 helps us to resize. So once the resize, you can see here it is converted to 224, 224,3. So this after here I'm creating a X and Y list. So basically what it is going to do is we have just converted taken the only one image here to the NumPy, to the arrays here. So I'm just using the for loop here, dictionary, whatever the dictionary I have stored here, right? All the images in the dictionary, I'm just using another for loop so that everything is converted now into this format, into this size 224, 224, 3. Okay, so that is what I'm trying to achieve in this for loop. So after that, what I'm doing is I'm just converting everything into a NumPy array. Okay, these are basically it's in the data type of uint8. Okay, so it won't be good for any of our operations. So I'm using the NP here, and I'm converting the X and Y values to this one. After that, I will just print you how and X and Y is going to look like. Okay. After converting to NumPy array, so basically it is going to be look the same. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, the Y is having 0, 4, 4. Yeah. So in the Y list, I'm appending the flower names. Okay, whatever the flower names we are having, no, like roses, daisy, sunflowers, tulips. Okay, I'm just appending it here. So after that, we know the common function. Okay, train test split. So what it is going to do is, in the scikit-learn you will have the train test split. So we have a data set, right? Data set of 1,000, and we want to split it. Like a 60% for training and 40 for testing. Likewise, you can just put it here. So here I'm not going to use anything for my testing criteria. I'm not going to test it. I'm just using it to keep the random status as 0. So for this only, I'm just importing here. So here what I'm doing is I'm just scaling the images. Okay, yeah, I will just now print you the X train, what is my training and the testing sets. Okay. So now we have this kind of arrays, right? We have the values from 0 to 255, and in the one, I think it is a large array. So likewise for X test also will have the same. So I'm just converting every image by 255, so that the scaled image will have the values from 0 to 1. Okay, just after executing this plot. Okay, I think I have to execute just X train scale down. Yeah, so here, yeah, I think you have the values from 0 to 1. Okay. So now we are going to make prediction using the pre-trained model. Okay, now everything is done. Okay, now we have set our variables, everything is done. Okay, now we have to utilize that mobile net model, and we have to make the prediction. Okay, so I'm just checking the shape of the X0 here. Okay, so you can view, you can use this plot matplot library to plot it. Okay, whatever the values that are hiding, whatever the images that are hiding here in this variable X variable, you can just print it here. It will going to print you, yeah, what is the image that is hiding. You can just change 0 or 1 or something. It will show you the image of the rows. And here what I'm doing is, likewise, I'm just taking 3 images for my predictions. Okay, and I'm resizing it. Okay, I'm resizing it on the image, so that it's already in 224, 224 format only. But anyway, to be cautious, I'm just again resizing it using the CB2. You can check after the resized image. Again, now we have 70 good numbers. Okay, so here I'm just I'm just taking the classifier. So whatever the classifiers see in the first phase, wherever we have made a prediction of a tiger shark. Okay, so I'm just we have all the mobile net way to classify images and model knowledge here. Okay, so that knowledge I'm using here, and I'm predicting these 3 images. Okay, so we have the image here, right? X0, X1, X2. Okay, these are the 3 images. Yeah, this one is having roses. Yeah, instead of roses it has written as a rose. Okay, this one is also a rose. Okay, I think these more look like, these are not a real flower images, right? It's not a clear, so the model cannot able to learn the essence of it. Okay, so what I think it will say as a flower, I think it will be related to the materials that is having a flower. Let us say you have a vase. Okay, and the vase is having some flowers. Okay, the image is also there, it is going to be said that the vase is the image is present in the vase, something like that. Okay, so I'm just warning you. Okay, and here I'm just passing that whatever the arrays that I have here, and I'm passing it to that classifier, and I'm storing it in the predictor. And like we are taking the maximum maximum mark. I use this max arc function here. So it is going to be written the indices of maximum values. Okay. So once I run this here, and now my predicted has these labels. Okay, 722 and 722 and 795. Okay. And here what I'm doing is, again, I'm reading this. Okay, these are my values. Okay, and this model, my predictor is going to say that, okay, you have given me 3 images. That 3 images are these labels, 722, 722 and 795 labels in the data set, like that it is saying. Okay, so I'm running this image labels here. Okay, whatever the images, 1000 classes I have taken here, no, that I'm rerunning it, and I once execute it here, I have to give the list. I'm just putting this 722 index. Sorry, 722. What? 722 index here. Okay, and it is going to say me it is a pillow. Okay, the first image, whatever the image you are seeing here, no, that was labeled on some pillow. Okay, so it's a drawback. Okay, it is not going to say exactly it's a flower, but somewhere in the pillow, okay, somewhere in the thousands of images, there was a pillow, and that pillow has a flower image that is similar to this image. Okay, that is why it is showing as a pillow. Okay, and the next is again 772. The next image also similar. Okay, and the third one, let us hope whether it is giving us a correct prediction as a rose or something. Yeah, it is shower curtain. Okay, yeah, obviously. So somewhere in the shower curtain, okay, in the thousands of images, again, somewhere in the images, the shower curtain has this flower image. Okay, whatever the flower image you are seeing here, I think it's not a flower. Okay, there was some random image in the flower data set. This image, it was located somewhere. I think it's not a X3. It should be X2. Yeah. Yeah, so this image, somewhere in the shower curtain it was present. So in the data, we have the image that is closer to here. So it is splitting as a shower curtain class. Okay. So right now what I have done is, I have taken that model and I have froze those neural networks. And instead of using the softmax, I'm just froze those and I paused my flower data set, and it made, it didn't made a good prediction, but it made something close to that, like shower curtain and like that. Okay. So any questions? I think I'm done with this transfer learning. So any questions so far? Anything on this transfer learning?
Sir, what does freezing mean? Mean you are freezing the model? You are using same model in this next classification?
Sorry, I didn't get your question. Fusing? You are asking about fusing?
Freezing.
Yeah. So what I'm doing is,
Typically you have written freezing.
Yeah. So that is just a term. Okay. What it means is, like, I'm not touching that part. I'm not retraining my model. If you see in my model, I haven't defined any model like, any machine learning model like Naive Bayes or KNN or linear logistic. I did nothing. I didn't use any classification models at all. Okay. And I taken the pre-trained model and I have used it for my purpose. So the pre-trained model that I was talking about is present in this URL, in this API. The freezing that I have mentioned here is, just for the concept understanding. Okay. So if you say, this model, whatever the model that the URL is providing, so that will have a huge number of data set. We can't literally train that. It will take days. Okay, it needs good GPU. I'm not talking about CPU, GPU or TPU, something like that, to train this. Okay, so Google has already done this job for you. Okay, and you can just use the URL and import that essence and that knowledge alone, and we can make this beautiful predictions here. Is it answered your question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So any other questions before I'm jumping to the next topic? Next step, we are going to share about one-shot learning. Okay, I assume there is no questions and I'm going to the one-shot learning. So one-shot learning, mostly it is used in the facial recognitions. Okay, so these are my colleagues' photos. Okay, and what we are trying to do is, let us say, if you see, there was a myth in deep learning. So for deep learning, we need a huge amount of data. Okay, yeah, it is true in most of the cases, but some cases like one-shot, we don't need a large amount of data. We just need one or two images, or from the one or two images, we can make the prediction. Okay. So let us say, these are my colleagues, okay, and these are their photos. And if let us say if we want to build a model, we want to build a deep learning model that is going to allow only this person is coming to the office. Okay, if a unknown person like this one, like the blue face here, if anyone enters apart from our people, our colleagues, it should not be opening the gates for them. Okay, so let us have these are some real type applications where one-shot learning is using. So if you want to do that, we can do it by one-shot learning. We don't need to provide large number of data sets. Okay, and I will tell you how it is going to work, how it can be achieved. Okay, so it's a classification task where one or few examples are used to classify many new examples. Yeah. So this is my image here. Okay. So if my image is put into this one-shot learning, and if I'm coming, okay, let us say this is how I trust and I coming to the office, the model will recognize it. Okay, and it will allow me to enter into the office premises. Okay. So if let us say if an unknown person is coming, the blue dot, it will compare with every image. Okay, it's not him, it's not her, it's not Rakesh. So it won't open the gates for them. Okay. So modern face recognition system approach the problem of one-shot learning via facial recognition by using the rich low-dimensional feature representation called face embedding. Yeah, most of the even if you mobiles and the computers nowadays, you can just it is happening, right? It is happening like a miracle just to see your face, and it will unlock for you. So those kind of things use this low dimensional feature representation and things like other things to capture the in-depth image. I mean, in-depth details of your face, and it will make the prediction, and it will open the security for you. Yeah, so this is the overall summary of the one-shot learning. Okay, I'm going to show you how it is done. Okay, not I'm going to show it end to end, but I can tell you that what is the overview, how it is happening behind the scenes. Okay. Yeah, so one of the main important function is a similarity function. Okay, so basically what it is going to do is it will compare the two images. Okay, so this is my image, and this is how I'm coming to the office. Means it is going to compare these two image, and it is going to look whether the person is similar or not. Okay, and initially what it will do is it will compare with every image that is available in the database. So it will match here. The score will be very high. To find the similarities, the score should be very less. Okay, it should not be very high, it should be very low. Okay, it will compare with this image, and the score will be somewhere 9 or 10, and it will compare to this image, the score will be 2 or 3 or close to 1 or something like that. From this image, it will have since if we have a similar facial representation, the score will be little bit less. Okay, so we might have similar facial representation, the score will be 6 or 7. So obviously with where it will be 10 or 12. Okay, so for this image the score is very less, and we can set our threshold, like if the score is less than 3, you can allow them in like that. And then if the score is less than 3, 2 is less than 3, so it will recognize that okay, this person is this person, and he can enter the office like that. So that is what is called as a similarity function in a nutshell. Okay, here they are using the D function here, that is going to be like a degree of difference between the images, on what degree that image is varying from itself. If the degree of difference is smaller, then we have the same person, and if the degree like I told previously, if the degree is very high, we are having a different person. Okay, so the threshold is it's all depends on how you can set. Okay, it's basically called as a tau, and you can set the threshold, and you can set its values, and you can let them in, or you can let them out, or you can use for some other purpose. Yeah, so this is the similarity function that will be used here in one-shot learning. Okay, and I will tell you how the similarity function is working. Okay, in depth detail in the next slide. So here we have a lot of techniques. Okay, one of the common technique, and let us say common and very good technique approach is a Siamese network. Okay, so this Siamese network, it will how it is going to, I mean, how it is understanding the image, how it is calculating the whether the images are similar or different. Okay, so that is, in a nutshell, it is done by Siamese network. Okay, so the D function, whatever you have seen in the previous slide, it is used to compare the input images and whatever the input it is getting. Basically, it should get 2 input images, or sometimes 2 or 3 or something like that, and it will be returning the scores of the similarities or differences between them. Okay, so for that purpose, the Siamese network is used. Okay, so here again we are using this neural networks only. So let us assume my image. Okay, this image as a x1. Okay, you can assume that in this format. Okay, and the x1 is now passed into the various layers of the neural network. Okay, and it has its own weights, and I'm not going in depth into that. So it has its own weights, and it is going to convert this image into 128 encoding. Okay, so these are just some future vectors. Okay, so if you pass into the neural networks, it will again convert this, it will go into layer by layer, and finally it will be some encoded future vectors. Okay, that encoded future vectors will have 128 encoding format. Okay, so that encodings is really what we are going to use into that into this phase predictions. Okay, so usually what we will do is there is another one way also, like you can just use it to the softmax to make the classification. But why that approach is not not industrially used approach is that will be a default approach. Okay, so it will be an easy job on default approach. And whenever the problem is, if you have a very small data like 5 or 6 images and you want to make a very good classification on that, so you have to retrain your CNN whenever you build with softmax function. Okay, for that purpose, I think we cannot use that. It will be the computational resources will be high if the image keep on increasing. Okay, so for that purpose we cannot use that. Okay, so what I'm doing is I have calculated the 128 encoding of my input image, and I'm storing it in f of x, which is nothing but a function of x comma 1. Okay, I'm calling this as a f of x. Okay, let us say my colleague Mahesh is walking in. Okay, and system captures this image and it is going to pass into the same network. I'm not going to retrain it. I'm just using it like we have used in the transfer learning. I'm just using it. I'm just passing into the same network, so that it will also going to calculate some 128 encodings of the second image. That I'm going to call it as a f of x2. Okay, now we have to find out the similarities between them, and if the similarities are considerable, and we can say that okay, he's not a random person, he is just our colleague. You can the face is recognized like that. Okay, so that is what happening in the Siamese network. Okay, so the neural network parameters are defined encoding f of x comma I 120 encoding. Yeah. So basically what it is saying that instead of 1 and 2 here, I'm just taking it as a I and j. That is how the formula is defined in mathematically. So we have 2 images here, which is one is f of x comma I and xi and f of xj. Okay, so we have to subtract these images, and we have to square them. Okay, so once we have the output and the output is smaller, then we have the same person. If the output is not smaller, then we have a different person. Okay, so that is what the basic assumption here. So likewise, you can improve the accuracy by adjusting the threshold. If the values are very less or something like that, and you can just say that performance will be very good if you set your threshold is high, and if you increase your threshold, it won't be accurate. Also, you can capture many facial features, like taking multiple images, like your phone is doing when you are setting up your face recognition for first time. You can just take multiple images so that the classification will be better. Okay. And yeah, so whatever I have explained it so far, I have put it here. Okay, so I have put in this slide. So in Siamese network, we take an input image of a person and we try to find its encoding, and then we use the same network, okay, without performing any updates on the weights or biases, and we take the input image of the second person and we will predict their encoding. So basically we compare the encoding to check the similarities between them. And then if it is similar, we will say, okay, this is the same person. We will make a prediction as the same or different. Okay, so very simple concept, and there's a huge applications. Okay. So next one is a triplet loss function. Okay, So we might we might be wondering again if you go in depth into the CMS network, we have something like loss function. So every machine learning model will have a loss function, so that we can understand where our how well our algorithm is mapped over data. Okay, so likewise here we have a triplet. It's one of the complex function in the industry, but with the right parameters, and even in a TensorFlow hub, if you see, it won't have it won't have a very good let us say don't have a very easy way of coding this triplet function. It's very complex. Okay, so what is this function is doing is a triplet loss is a loss function for a machine learning algorithms where baseline input is compared with a positive and negative input. So it will take an anchor, it will take a anchor value, and it will compare with a positive and negative value, and it will learn from it. Okay, so the distance from the baseline input to the positive input is minimized, and the distance from the baseline input to the negative input is maximized. So whatever we have seen earlier, right? If the value is large, so obviously it is a different person. If the value is very less, it is the same person. So that is what I have put in a nutshell here, triplet loss function. Yeah, it's a basic image. I have taken it from the Andrew Ng course. So he explained it very well. So see, it's an anchor image. Okay, let us say she is walking in, and it's her other image. Okay, maybe after office time it is her image. Okay, so these are having a positive relationship, right? These are similar. It has similar facial features, and the image is same. So this is a positive image. Okay, and the anchor is again same person, and it's a negative image. Obviously, we can see them. They are very different images. Okay, so we have to train the network by taking the anchor image and comparing with it both the positive and negative sample. Okay, so that is how the triplet loss is calculated. The loss function is calculated likewise, and the dissimilarity between them, between the anchor image and the positive image must be low. Okay, so if you see in this way here, the similarities the similarity score will be very less, so that it's the same person. Here it will be very high. Okay, so that sums up the triplet function. Okay, so how we are going to calculate it? Okay, so every loss function will have a formula. Okay, so this is where this is a formula here equal to max of Mahesh, I think
the time is overshooting.
I think I'm done, bro. I'm done. Okay, it's a last image. Okay. Okay, so this is a function here, and we can use this formula to calculate, and A is a anchor image, P is a positive image. Okay, so here it's a conclusion. Okay, so in conclusion, I have so if you see in a deep learning, every day by day there are a lot of mathematical functions are coming in, and mathematical functions can be explored, and it is closing it is coming close to the human performance. Okay, so that is one of the huge advantage of technologies. Okay, every day it is evolves. It is coming close to the human level performance, and we can really use them. Okay, we can make our job easier, so life easier. Okay, yeah, that's it. So any questions from Mahesh? I'm done, Mahesh. Okay, so if we have any questions from the audience on the
Let
both
me
topics,
share my screen. Yeah, if anyone have any questions.
So, what is the benefit of transfer learning? Because the method is almost similar that we do in deep learning. So, any specific benefit of that particular method?
Yeah. So one of the main benefit of a transfer learning is, if you see my example, I haven't trained any model, and I haven't used a lot of resource also. So if you train a deep learning model with this having 1.4 million images, even with a good GPU and TPU, it will take considerable amount of time, 1 or 2 hours, right? A very good GPU. Okay, so I have avoided that, and I have showed you demo within 10 minutes of time. By max 10 minutes of time, the coding will be taking half an hour or 1 hour time. So you can save computational resources also, and you can save your time also. So that is one of the huge advantage of transfer learning. So I haven't trained any model, right? I have utilized the existing trained model.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Thank you. Yeah.
So can you share your mail ID? So in case if you have any clarifications or doubt, we can contact you now, sir.
Sure. That is better actually. I will share. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Any questions on the Mahesh part? Any deep learning questions or anything like that? We can open. Or else, if you are good, I think Mahesh, you can continue.
Professors,
Hello,
any other
Mahesh.
questions? Professors? Any questions? Okay. So I think no further questions. Shall we wind up,
Yeah.
sir?
Yeah, I think we can wind up. So
Okay, sir.
Vijay or Mahesh, you people want to say anything, or we can wind up?
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Anita, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. Sir, really, it's an eye-opening session on GAN, one-shot learning and transfer learning techniques. It's completely different from a traditional learning in traditional learning. So I'd like to thank you for such a valuable session. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Tumla Magesh, as well as Arun Kumar, sir, for such an valuable session and for accepting our invitation on your busy schedule. And also, I'd like to thank all the participants for their interest on attending this 5 days faculty development program. Thank you all and best wishes. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Arun Kumar, sir, and Mahesh, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks,
Thank
everyone. Thank you.
Participants, you can join the next session at 12 p.m. Thank you.
Participants, the attendance link and the feedback link is posted in the chat box. You please fill it up. Thank you.